Greetings, WHAP warriors. Brad Anderson here. This is an addendum to the DBQ response workshop number 2. Just trying to clean up a few things from today's lessons, and those of you that came later in the day benefited from the rockier start at the beginning of the day. You know, when a year goes by between introducing the DBQ, you forget a few of the tips and tricks that go along with it. And I've also forgotten that, well, I haven't forgotten this, but we've been through quite a lot. And so the cognitive overload, when you're trying to put 6 gallons into a 5-gallon bucket, it can be a lot. So I wanted to go back through this. So if you were earlier in the day, or perhaps even if you were later in the day, and you got this is a great opportunity for you to clean up the DBQ we were working on in class. The prompt, I tried to keep it simple for our first one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a sample thesis and the documents that I might use to support this thesis. The prompt, the period from 1750 to 1900, was marked by revolutions and rebellions, which led to the development of new nation states. Evaluate the extent to which the Atlantic Revolutions fulfilled or betrayed the goals of those who made them. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit, you could go either way here. Based on the documents that I gave you, you could say, well, listen, I've taken a look at the Atlantic Revolutions and I've taken a look at the documents, and they betrayed their goals, you know, based on what I learned in class, through the readings, through the cultural supplements, and the documents. You could also argue that they met their goals, although, you know, at times flawed, which could be your counter argument, but those goals and the framework was met. So we're going to go in that direction. Not saying you can't go in the other direction, but to keep it simple, to keep us all on the same page, I'm going to go that way, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. So taking a look at that prompt, which should be in your journals by now. We went through this in class. Breaking it down. Let's provide the context. Now, in class, we'll go over this much more in depth, but remember, when you're giving the historical context, you're trying to provide the idea of what's going on during that time period. Now, we haven't taken a look at the Industrial Revolution. We will next week. We haven't taken a look at imperialism. We will next week. Those are all things that happen in the time period, 1750 to 1900. All we've looked at right now are the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian, and the Latin American revolutions. So what you might say to provide context and link it to the prompt is say something to the effect that the American Revolution was fought to free the United States from the rule of King George and the British Empire, while the French, in a very bloody revolution, sought to cast off the shackles of the rule of an absolute monarch and establish freedoms for the bourgeoisie, the sans-culottes, please forgive my French, and the peasants of France, while the Haitian Revolution sought to free the slaves and did, thanks in large part to the efforts of people like Toussaint L'Ouverture. And then in Latin America, all the way up through Mexico and in South America, hacendados and Creoles and mestizos fought for shedding the economic and political and military control of the Spanish Empire. It's something to that effect, but you definitely want to introduce your essay to the reader and let them know this is what's happening in the world around this particular event and this particular prompt, and use specific terms and events and processes, as we've gone over many times. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the thesis. Now, again, is this perfect? No. But if you were second hour, if you were third hour, I didn't walk you through this as I should have. And looking back on my notes from last year, I wanted to, apologize. I needed to walk you through this thesis instead of just saying, hey, good luck, right? Because it's been a while since we've even written a thesis, well before the holiday break. So here you go. Here's your counter argument, or a potential counter argument. If you can do better, by all means. I'm sure there's many of you out there that can. But I would say, although the Atlantic Revolutions did fail at times, with immediately providing suffrage and freedom for all, that's my counter argument, there was a strong framework for the pursuit of equality and suffrage, and that should say the United States, France, and Haiti, and Latin America following their revolutions, and there was success in establishing freedom from colonial or tyrannical rule. Therefore, here's my why. Therefore, the Atlantic Revolutions largely succeeded in achieving their goals. There's my statement, my historical claim. So there's your context, there's your thesis, and again, if you want to word it differently, if you want to state it, that's fine. But for those of you that were kind of staring at me today, as Mr. Carhart says, like I had a second head popping out of my shoulder, here's something to get you started so that you can kind of get some momentum. Now, this is my personal Mr. Anderson little trick. I'm sure I picked it up from somebody else, but I like to show you this. Now that I have context and I have a thesis, now I want to identify those documents that are going to help me support the thesis. Remember, A becomes topic sentence of my first body paragraph. B becomes the topic sentence of my second body paragraph. So let's take a look. What would support A? Which documents? Well, taking a look at the documents, perusing them. If you were in class today, you have a copy in hand. If you're in class tomorrow, you'll have a copy in hand, or you can access the digital file on Google Classroom. I'm going to say document D. Document D, Sentiments or Declaration of the Rights of Man, is going to very much support the fact that there is a framework that is laid or built for future freedom and equality, as will the Declaration of Sentiments from the Seneca Falls Convention, written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. That's going to be the next document. And document G, Lincoln's second inaugural address, perfect example of laying the groundwork and framework for future freedom and equality. And then document C also does a good job, but I have it crossed off because I already have 3 that are going to help me support A. So I'm just going to leave document C off the table for now, and if I need it, I can always use it, right? Document B on the T-chart, and by the way, I draw this T-chart, in my margin or in my notes or in my journal, and this helps me organize in the margins, this T-chart, which documents I'm going to use, and it organizes my thinking. It's like outlining an essay before you create it, which I also will be talking about at a later date. Document B is a good idea, the Declaration of Independence, which is going to outline a separation by the United States from the British Empire, which talks about getting rid of tyrannical rule and becoming independent. Supports that. Point B. Document A, Patrick Henry's "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death" speech. And then document E, which is Maximilien Robespierre's speech to the National Assembly. And although not a fan of Maximilien Robespierre for obvious reasons, his words, and at least in that document, it talks about freedom from tyranny. And so that's going to fit neatly into supporting B. But having taken a look at this, separating it, doing this T-chart in my margin, now I have the 3 documents that will help me support A, the 3 documents that will help me support B, and in my paper, I'm not going to say document A, document D, document F. I'm going to use the name of the document and reference it as such. And then now, once you go to write your essay, now use these documents to support your thesis. You will use document D, document F, document G, and you will explain how those support point A. Document B, A, and E, how they support point B. Then you will IPP, or source, as we say. You will source them, providing either the intended audience, the purpose, or the point of view of those particular documents. Now, you don't need to do all 3 for each document. For example, document D, which is the Declaration of the Rights of Man from France, as authored by the National Assembly, the intended audience. What do you think the intended audience is? Probably French citizens addressing most importantly, the third estate, which is the working class, the bourgeoisie, the peasants, but also making it clear to the king and queen and royalty and the clergy that there was a new sheriff in town. The purpose, obviously, is to enumerate the freedoms that all French should enjoy. And it spells it out very neatly and lists these rights and freedoms of equality, liberty, and fraternity that the French National Assembly desired for the people of France. And then the point of view. Well, it's authored by or authored at the National Assembly. And at that time, obviously, the National Assembly is comprised of, as we've said, the sans-culottes, who are the, without breeches. These are your artisans, your dock workers, your kind of working class people. And then, there's representatives, obviously, from the bourgeoisie class. And, I'd have to do a little bit deeper dive into it. Not sure how many peasants were actually present at the National Assembly, but I'm sure they had them in mind when they were writing it. And so it's from the point of view of the people that are experiencing economic hardship. It's from people that are experiencing hunger from, a lack of bread and wheat, and are upset about the opulence and abuse of power by the absolute monarchs. The point of view is of the third estate. So hopefully that helps break this down a little bit better. And I would use this when we go to author your essay. This isn't the last one. And so there will be a time when I say, okay, here's the prompt, here are the documents, your thesis, go. But for now, this will help you get on a roll, get some momentum going, and hopefully this has been helpful in getting you started. If you're viewing this as a review, hopefully it helps you write a stronger essay. And we'll see you in class. And it looks like next week we're back in full, which is great because we got some fun things in store for you in AP World History and beyond. Have a great night.